Welcome to Smile Television Talk Show. I'm standing here at a very unique event. We've had our senator come in, and we've had the superintendent of schools, and they are promoting the passing of Senate Bill number 231. And this bill will provide educational funds for the school district in East St. Louis, Illinois. You know, I'm going to start first with Montez because he spoke on behalf of the students in East St. Louis. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good today.
You know what? You spoke very, very well. And if you will, share with our audience your passion about what's going on here today and why did you feel the need to speak up?
Well, today, guess every day, I see a lot of talent in the youth in this district. And without the funds, we aren't able to expand and, be able to broaden our horizons and get that resource to extend our, talent.
I see.
And with this bill and with all the help from the youth, it kind of shows that, we have an active role and we're not the stereotype that people perceive of us. And with that, that gives us the motivation to want to broaden our futures and extend our education. And with that, it the passion and the need for education and the resources that this bill can provide, it will be helpful. And so we have a lot of people going steadfast, and all the youth are behind us with this bill.
Now, what year are you, Montez?
2018, I'm a sophomore.
My goodness, and you're just a sophomore. We
Yes,
got a
ma'am.
lot in store, don't we?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also standing here with my good friend, my neighborhood buddy, but he's also representing the pastors in the East St. Louis area. You're in district. The
New Salem Baptist
the New Salem Baptist District, and you spoke eloquently today. We're going to show some clips of that during our broadcast. But tell us, what are your hopes? What you hope to gain by your presence today?
Well, chief among them is that we will receive a consistent equity formula for the state, and that the students in East St. Louis, in particular, will receive what is needed for their future and their advancement, and that they know that they can achieve as well as anyone else, but they need a playing field that's bit fair. And so for too many years and too long, they have received what is considered equal but not equitable. And so we don't just want to change our people, we want to change out the systems, because we're continuously, if you let me say it this way, we get a different bowl, but it's the same soup.
Wow. So do you really think efforts like just today, with all of the students here with signs, we had the senator come in, we've had our superintendent, how much of an impact do you really think that this will make?
Every impact is an impact. I think that because of their positions and their levels of influence, that it will make a difference. It's not a political campaign, it's a personal need for today's generation and tomorrow's. And in this particular area, that pays a higher tax rate with a lower tax base than some of the more affluent areas and communities, it's an absolute must. So I think that it does make a big difference.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us on Smile Television Talk Show, and I wish you the best in all your endeavors. And stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking with the senator who spoke earlier today.
At the nature of your question, which is we value as a state some children more than others, and that the proof is in the numbers, and there's no disputing it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for staying tuned with Smile Television Talk Show. I'm standing here with our new city manager, and I'm just very pleased to introduce him. But he spoke today regarding this Senate bill, and I just want him to share his thoughts with you. Thank you for taking time to talk with us.
Oh, no problem.
You know what, Attorney Logan, we have a lot of issues in our area, and one of them is the funding for our schools.
Right.
And you spoke from your heart, and just to recap, if you will, for our audience, what your hopes are for such a bill.
Well, what this bill does is it restores equity in our funding formula. The formula is a process, and what we need to do is we need to change the formula in order to make sure that disadvantaged communities like East St. Louis actually get the funding that they need. Currently, the students in East St. Louis receive $3,482 less than what they need in order to be successful, okay? The formula doesn't allow them to get those funds. So what this Senate bill does is it redistributes the funding and allocates it to more needy communities than those that are more wealthy. Currently in the system right now, that for every dollar spent in a wealthy community, only 81 cents on that dollar is spent in towns like East St. Louis. It just has to change.
Well, you know what, I'm just glad that you took time out today to come out and share, and I know your time is limited, so I just want to thank you for this short interview and hope to see you again on Smiles Television Talk Show.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So I think if we look at, past example, Reverend Meeks, for example, who now, a former state senator, now chairs the State Board of Education. He championed Senate, just was on the phone with him in the parking lot, actually. Championed Senate Bill 750. There have been previous attempts along the way. We've gone 20 years now under the current formula. This formula that distributes money to schools was enacted in 1997. The state was very different than it is today. East St. Louis was very different in 1997 than it is today, but we're still shelling out $13 billion the same way. So I don't use past, I guess, successes or failures to change this as a metric. Here's what I know. Our system, and if you look at some of these papers that we've handed out, we're far to the right on equity. So that bar graph that you're looking at right there. If we don't change the system, we're going to continue to slide further. So absent of change, we know what path we're on today, and it's not a good one.
Thank you for tuning back in to Smiles Television Talk Show. I'm standing here with Senator Manar, and he is the gentleman who's here in assisting us push this bill. Thank you, sir, for coming, being a part of it.
I'm pleased to be here. Important issue.
You know what? Just listening to you talk, it really appears that you have passion for what you're doing. And how often are you really involved with such bills of this nature? Is this your...
Well, this began for me about 3 years ago. After being sworn into the Senate, I met with superintendents in the district that I represent, which is Springfield, Decatur, south to Edwardsville. So a chunk of central Illinois, and they kind of gave me their forecast for how dire their financial circumstances were and still are today. So I kind of dug into it. And the further I got, the deeper we got. And today, 3 years later, we have a statewide coalition. We have a bill that would cure inequity in Illinois once and for all. And I think we're going to get the job done. I also approach it as a parent. I got 3 kids in public schools, and I see it in my own district where I live. And those changes affect myself as a parent and my children as well as children here in East St. Louis and across the state.
Let me ask you this. So looking at the students and all of the support that we've garnered within the community leaders, does this really make a difference? Can this have an impact?
Oh, it clearly does. The only way we're going to change this broken system is if voters, people, taxpayers, parents demand the change, and that legislators hear from their constituents, and Governor Rauner hears from the people of the state that it has to change. Senator Claiborne, Representative Jackson are both wonderful champions of this issue, supporting schools and equity in schools. They continue to take that message to Springfield. I think it's because people have told them, just like folks in my district have said, hey, Senator Manar, you got to get this changed. So we have to continue it. And the only way, we're going to change an entrenched system that's stacked against children that live in poverty is if people demand that the system be changed. And that's what we did here today.
I must say this. You tackled a very tough issue, and you weren't afraid to say it. And I think what I'm referring when you mentioned that the students down here may not be valued quite as well. That was hard to say.
Yeah. It's hard to say, it's hard to hear. Yeah. Whether I'm in Chicago or, in a small community like I was in Morrisonville this morning, which is a rural community in Christian County in the district that I represent, we should have these tough conversations in an effort to bring about a solution to the problem. We do have a system that values some children more than other children. And that affects children across the state, not just in urban communities in one part of the state, but in kids' lives in small towns that has seen poverty grow over the past decade, but we haven't adjusted our school finance system to address that. And we have to do that. And so, when I say that the state of Illinois values children in East St. Louis less than other children, I mean it. And there's proof of it. Proof is in the numbers. Proof is in everything that we've talked about. But we can't stop there. Just identifying the problem isn't going to fix it. We have to put a solution on the table. And that's what the bill that we have pending in the state Senate today that I hope to call for a vote very soon. That's what that bill would do, is fix that system and would inject equity into the worst system of public school finance in the country.
Wow. I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us on Smile Television Talk Show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
And it's one that takes $800,000, for example, from East St. Louis and distributes it to some of the wealthiest districts in the suburbs of Chicago, all the while the state spends millions and millions more, not directing it to East St. Louis. We have 3/4 of the districts in the state that are deficit spending today. That number is going to continue to rise. We hold every district accountable to the same standards. Whether they spend $6,000 or $32,000, they still have to take the same tests. They still have to meet the same standards, but we stack the deck against some schools. So what we're trying to do is just advocate and say, we have a way to change this. And it's not going to change overnight, but it is going to start sending us in the right direction. And that's what we've tried to and that's why we're here today, is to try to say, this is a good change.
Welcome back to Smile Television Talk Show. I'm standing here with the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Arthur Culver. Thank you, Dr. Culver.
Thank you.
For taking time. This was a really great event today.
Yes.
Can you kind of just sum up in your own words what you saw happen and where you would like us to go from here?
What I saw happen was a lot of important people came here about this issue of funding. The state funding formula is broken, and it has been for decades, and it's unfair, it's not equitable, and it's shortchanging students from districts such as East St. Louis. Right now, I think today's meeting is a show of support from the grassroots all the way up through the Senate. Senator Andy Manar, who's the sponsor of this bill, Senate Bill 231, he's really getting a lot of support as he goes around the various communities throughout our state. And the good thing about it, the Illinois State Board of Education, they understand and are also supporting a change in the funding formula. Also, many other rural districts that are not even close to East St. Louis, but have the same problem. I think the day has come when everybody recognizes that something has to be done, and there seems to be a lot of momentum. A lot of legislators across the state have shown the courage, the compassion, and the commitment to make this problem go away.
Speaking of commitment and coming together, you had a lot of students, and I had an opportunity to talk with one of them. He was a sophomore.
Yes.
And I told him, I said, we're really going to be looking for great things, and there are many other students here.
Yes.
But then I just.
But it lets you know, though, it used to be just a few educators were aware of the problem, but now it's grassroots. We had parents, community members, and more importantly, students, and they understand how important it is for the funding formula to be fixed in order for them to have a fair shot. Because let's admit, equal treatment when the needs are clearly very unequal is not equality, is not fair, and it doesn't resemble equity at all. So I think the fact that everybody's aware of this issue, and you know what, everybody's going to be steadfast, and this is not one meeting and that's it. A lot of us will be in Springfield on Wednesday morning to let the House of Representatives know how important this issue is, and we are demanding a change. This has really become it's more than a broken funding formula. This is really a state of emergency for people like the kids that are in our community, and it's really a civil rights issue. It's no longer just an educational problem. It's a civil rights issue. And I don't see people letting this go until it's fixed.
Well, you know what? We're going to keep our eyes on this, and we're going to push for the best, and we'll let the community know as much as we can about what's going on. So thank you for taking time to talk with us, and thank you for tuning in to Smile Television Talk Show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I think there's support for this in the Senate. I think the House and Governor Rauner, are going to continue to be challenges. But one thing that we have achieved is that there's very little, if any, debate about the nature of the system today. Everybody knows it's broken. Everybody knows it needs to change. A year ago, there were still voices in Springfield that says, there's no problem. You all are making that up. You know, this equity business, you know, save it for another day. That's gone. Everybody knows it's broken. Now we got to just figure out how to change it. We think this is the good idea. Yeah.
Welcome back to Smile Television Talk Show. I'm standing here with two individuals who can give us a little bit more background on exactly what happened here today. Mr. Alonzo Bird, who's on the East Side Align Council, and Mr. Evan Cross, who's the director. Thank you both for joining us. And I'll start with you, Mr. Bird. As a member of the council, what role did the council play in this whole news conference today?
Well, you know, I know Evan will explain what East Side Aligned is, but it's a whole about a collective impact, you know, trying to bring organizations together who share a common goal. And that common goal is the betterment of the lives for the children of East St. Louis. Okay. And we do that in many different ways, and education is one of those things that's at the top of our list in trying to make that happen.
Okay, I understand. And Mr. Cross, so as the director, tell us a little bit, first of all, about East Side Align.
Yeah, so Alonzo said that it's a collective impact process, and if you don't remember anything else, remember it's a process to align policy, practice, and investment across sectors to improve outcomes for young people. So you hear policy being the first one, and so today's event is around a huge policy issue affecting all of the kids within District 189. And as we look to align policy, practice, and investment, we had to address what are the root issues that is preventing young people from having the best opportunities for success. And Alonzo serves on the council and actually chairs our policy and advocacy committee. And earlier this year, we looked at what are the legislative issues that hit at the heart of what we're trying to achieve. And this one came up. And when we looked at it, we realized what Senator Manar said today is that children in East St. Louis are considered less valuable than kids elsewhere.
You know, I keep hearing that, and that is so hard to hear. However, coming from a senator who's working there and can see how things are going, we have to understand that there are some differences within the spectrum of things. Let me ask you this, Mr.
Sure.
Berg. Can such activities such as today make a real difference?
Well, of course they can. I think in order to move and to make progress, there has to be awareness. Now, as the senator also said, this issue has been going on for 2 decades, at least in terms of the current funding. The way that the state of Illinois funds the schools. It's been going on for 2 decades. But Stephanie, as you know, it goes all the way back to when we were students here at East St. Louis Senior High.
Okay, we're not trying to tell my age. We'll tell them how old you are.
But I'm from the class of 75.
Right, and I'm from 76.
Right, and so we just had our 40th year anniversary reunion, if you will. And so a lot of us who came to that reunion look for what can we do to help make a difference in our community. And the East Side Align is one of those things that I've been pushing for my classmates to get involved with. And so we know that this is not a new issue. If you recall, in Jonathan Kozol's book, Savage Inequalities, the first chapter in that book was about East St. Louis Senior High School in the room of Mr. Solomon, one of our history teachers.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people may not know that.
Yes, I mean, so the funding, the inequitable way that schools are funded in our state is long should have been addressed. But now, given the dire straits that some communities are in, it really requires us all to do what we can right now.
So, Mr. Cross, if you had to sum everything up today and share your lasting thoughts with our viewing audience, what would you say?
You know, it was said that equity matters. The kids of East St. Louis matter. This whole push was to talk about the many different voices and community stakeholders who believe it and are willing to go to whatever length they need to fight for the kids. And we think this is the time. It needs to be the time because, as already been said, 2 decades overdue. And so, if anything, we just say there's a community that's around these kids. And it's not just around these kids, but the kids are helping lead the pack. And I think that's going to be the difference maker, is youth voice in this effort.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us on Smile Television Talk Show, and I want to thank you for tuning in and tune in every Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. on Charter Cable Channel 984. Keep smiling. You look better when you smile, and be the reason someone smiles today. only what you do for Christ will last.